Hello, my name's Michael. I hope you are well. I hope today's treating you good, despite the situations that you are in right now. Um, I want to thank Colleen for asking me to share my testimony. It's been a while since I've done it like this. The last it was during like COVID times. But yeah, I want to thank Colleen for this opportunity, and I want to thank those who's here to listen. But my prayer is that you're not just here to have time outside of your pad, but you're here to really have an encounter with God and to hear the goodness of God. Okay, so my name is Michael. Like I said, I'm from Birmingham, from an area called Aston, and with that, probably there's some people who's probably familiar with Aston. You automatically associate me with a certain section of people. Correct. I was a member of the Johnson's crew. Okay, but growing up in Aston wasn't like poverty, um, abuse, etc. It was just a normal childhood, fun. Went to school, college, etc. My parents were married. I came from a loving home, so I wasn't one of those who could say it was a single mother household. It wasn't that for me. I had a loving father and a mother, and friends, So it was just normal childhood friends growing up in an area called Aston. However, the older generation, who we knew, but not too well because of the age gap, made a name for the area. It was those who made the name, the Johnson's crew, for the area. So like I said, childhood growing up was normal. You're playing with your friends until you get to an age group where you hear what's going on around you by the older generation, and it sounds attractive and enticing, and it sounds something to be a part of, as mad as it sounds. So without there's no getting sworn into a gang, you just start taking up activities. And what were those activities? Robbery, selling drugs, and getting into war with people from the other side. So Handsworth, Hockley, Winston Green, and Ladywood. We perceived those as enemies at the time. Now, for me, like I said, well-mannered, etc. at home. But when I left home is where I was somebody else. Something that I say is outside pressure, where the pressures of outside, so your friends and what's going on outside, is going down a certain route. And then you have the opportunity or the option to join and be a part of it, or not be a part of it, but seem like nerd, for the lack of better term. Because you're not involved with all the activities, you're now looked at as like, yeah, he ain't on it. And you, at the time, you didn't want to be that kind of guy, so you didn't get involved. And what does get involved come with? It comes with the prison. So I went to prison because I was selling drugs at the time, but I remember being with my oldest daughter. I was with her mum at the time, and we was driving back home, but I had things in the car. Okay, and there was a police chase. So whilst I'm trying to evade the police, I'm throwing the weapon out the car, trying to evade them, but my tyre burst, hit the curb, crashed, leading me to be sentenced to prison. So I had to start my prison sentence in Brinsford. Now I remember getting into Brinsford and being asked if you are gang affiliated. So I said yes, and they said, where are you from? I said Birmingham. They said, which gang are you? So I said Johnson's crew, thinking they're going to home me with Johnson's crew. They never. And I remember being on the wing. I got in there, Central News was on, so it's after 6 p.m. And then I remember the following morning, people's at my pad looking in and shouting things from outside, because unknown to me, I was placed on the enemy's wing. And I was told it was because the governor at the time is trying to do away with the separation, but integrate both gangs together to become peaceful. It was never going to happen, because what's happened outside of the prison in terms of people being killed, it was too severe to be just all of a sudden make truce. So my first week was pure fighting. My family's come to visit me, fighting on the visit until I was shipped out. So I finished my sentence, but then was released back to society. But there was nothing in place from in the prison back then that would kind of change my mind or have me thinking a different route when I do come home. So I got involved in the same things. But since I've been away and came home, what's taken place now is gun crime, knife crime. It started to become more regular. So that's what we started to get involved with, just the statistics that bumped up the gun crime and the knife crime. And then there was a moment in September the 13th, 2009, where I was at home sleeping and my friend rang me and says, "You want to come to my auntie's party?" So I was umming and ahhing. It was about 2:30 in the morning when he called. But I said, okay, I'll come. So as he's pulled up outside, I remember walking out my house. But before I got out my front door, I used to have a pouch hung on the last door in the hallway, and it had my gun in there. And I looked at it thinking, do I? No, I don't need it. So I left it and went. We get to the party about 3:00 in the morning. And I remember walking past someone who was on the phone. And then I thought nothing. I knew him, but we didn't speak because he was from the area that we don't get along with. But we've never had any direct situations where I needed to worry because he was involved with my friend's family. So anyway, time's gone, little time's gone. And then there's a group of men that just come in. Excuse me. And at first I'm looking thinking, why are they here? Then I looked around and thought, are they here for me? And what confirmed that was when guns started to get taken out. So that I seen some of them taking out guns and then walking over to our section. Now behind us, we're in the corner of the venue. There's no way out behind us. We have to go through them to get out. So that wasn't an option. So as I got closer, I remember picking up bottles and just putting them on our table thinking, if we die today, we just have to go out swinging with bottles and just fight. And then the fight happened. But during the fight and commotion, shots are going off. Bearing in mind, this is a woman's 50th private party. Children are there. Shots are going off in the venue. Fights going on. And then my friend was shot, but we're still fighting. And I remember running to a certain part of the venue. I don't know how I was just fighting and tussling till I got to a part where I could just see commotion. Then I could see the gunman run to my side and then shot. Just one shot. Now I knew I was hit. But then someone come to fight me, so I'm still trying to fight. And then the security guards got me, put me down, restrained me, and said, you need to stop because you've been shot. Police come, vacate the building, secure the building, and then the ambulance come, take me to the hospital. But I don't remember anything from the venue when I was on the floor up until surgery. So now surgery's happened. And I can see my family looking at me and just looking very down, obviously because I've been shot, but it was past that because I remember being shot in my arm. So I was looking at them like, saying, why is everyone so down? And then I remember trying to get up just to sit up, but I couldn't because the way that the bedding was on me, it was clamped down, so I couldn't move. And then I looked to the side and I had a catheter. Now, for those that don't know, a catheter is a container that with a tube that you wee in, basically. You don't go to the toilet. It's just, there's like an insertion that goes to your bladder and it just drains your bladder when you need to go. So I thought, what's going on here? So I see the surgeon the following morning, the Monday morning now. And he puts the x-ray up and he shows me that I was shot in my shoulder, but the bullet pierced my lung, my esophagus. So for those that don't know what that is, it's where you swallow your food. My stomach, bowel, and it ended in my hip. So there was a lot of surgeries that was going on. Unbeknown to us all, whilst they done the laparotomy surgery, so basically the surgery down here, my arm was paralyzed. So I don't know how I can get the angle up, but you'll see a scar there. There's another scar there. And I also have one here because this arm was paralyzed because of the bullet that went through my shoulder. But no one knew this. It's only after about 2 months in hospital. No, like a few days in hospital, I couldn't move my arm. But I was discharged after 2 months because it was major surgery that I was worried about. After 2 months, I was discharged, but I had like a splint. But after 2 months, an aneurysm started to form in my armpit, which required another surgery. And then they called me back to repair my hand. So in all, the shooting happened September 2009, and by March 2010, all the other surgeries were done. So now I'm home, trying to get back together in terms of like physio, and you no longer have any medical conditions that you need to attend to in terms of surgeries. But all this time, I'm plotting to seek revenge, okay? And then I remember planning to the point where we had a car, stolen car, and the guns to go and kill this individual who shot me. Now, I remember my mom was talking about coming to church with her. I wasn't interested, I'm being honest. I was not interested. My mission was to go and seek revenge, okay? But the date that we set for this revenge, because we had to clear that he was in this location, my mum was been on me to come to church with her. But how my day looked on that day was, I've got my friends going to this location for a certain time. I'll meet you there. Then we're going to get in this car with the guns, go to this place and kill this guy. That was all that was supposed to happen on this particular day. Nothing else. I've even left my phone at home. The plan was to leave my phone at home just so there's no trace of me being in these certain areas. Anyway, just to keep my mum quiet, I said, okay, I'll come with her to church, but I'm on the clock, so I've got to be where I need to be to do what I need to do. It's only when I got to the church, I remember the preacher speaking, and then whilst the preacher was preaching, she stops her sermon, and she says, there's somebody in here who the devil has tried to take out. But if you don't surrender to God today, you won't survive the next one. Now, I'm thinking to myself, my mum set me up. My mum's done this where she spoke to this pastor, told him about what's happened to me, and she just basically wants me to be in the church. So I've looked at my mum, and she's looked at me, but the look she's giving me like, that must be you. I could tell she hasn't spoken to her. But I was thinking, nah, it's not for me. I ain't trying to hear it. I'm just watching the time, thinking where I need to be. Then the preacher said, forget what my sermon was. It's totally shifted. My spirit is telling me there's someone in here who the devil tried to take out, and I'm not going to carry on with the sermon until this person surrenders. Again, I'm thinking it's nothing to do with me. But whilst thinking that, I found myself getting up. And I remember speaking to myself, like thinking, what are you doing? And I'm walking to the front of the church. It sounds mad. I'm walking to the front of the church, reluctantly in my head, thinking, what are you doing? You need to be going the other way. It's like Jesus was pulling me against my will, but I was walking there. I remember Bishop Maynard speaking to me, because he wasn't doing a sermon. It was a different pastor, but he came to the front and he was speaking to me, and he had just asked me to repeat the sinner's prayer. I didn't know what the sinner's prayer was. But basically, it's repenting asking God to forgive you of your sins, repenting, and just giving your life over to Jesus Christ, okay? So I repeated these words, thinking nothing of it. But as I repeated the words, tears flooded from my eyes to the point where I couldn't see, but I found myself repeating the words. After I repeated the sinner's prayer, when I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the position or the spot where I started. I was at the front of the church. Now I'm at the side of the church, crying. But as my tears stopped and I was able to see, just like that, it was like the spirit of murder that was on me was gone. The mission that I planned to do that evening wasn't in me no more. Bearing in mind, I've got friends in a stolen car with guns waiting for me. There was no inkling of seeking retaliation. Christ removed the thoughts, the very thoughts that was going to cause death and destruction from me. Unbeknown to me at the time, like, it was just like, I'm not even going, it wasn't even a question. It was literally like, I'm no longer going to do this. But I didn't even pick up my phone to ring my friends to tell them anything. Not by my choice. It sounds mad. But it wasn't even in my train of thought to even tell them, stand down, let's just forget that. I started to then attend the local church in Dudley and became a member there and got involved in the church community, in the church family. It took 5 years before I next saw one of my friends who was sitting in that car. Now, if you know, the position that I put them in, leading them to possibly go jail for being in a stolen car with guns and not telling them I'm not coming, it could be a bad situation when we next see, because we haven't spoke for 5 years. They didn't try to ring me, because still kept the same number, but I never rang them. God separated me from them. I was no longer in Aston. I was relocated. My mum moved out. And it's in that moment where I became closer to God. But like I said, it was 5 years before I next see my friend. When we saw each other, it was in a neutral ground. It wasn't planned. I was taking my daughter to a park. He took his daughter to a park. And we saw each other for the first time by chance. But I'm a bit apprehensive, because I'm thinking, what's going to go on here? He saw me and he's coming over. And the closer we got, he put his arms out. And he embraced me with a hug. And I knew this is the peace that Jesus speaks about. Not just because of this simple scenario, because I'm telling you, the risk that I put him in and somebody else in terms of their freedom, because we all had children. For him to see me, and we haven't spoken since 5 years, but embrace me with a hug, and he asked me, his words were, "You're not still involved in the madness, are you?" That led me to know that he's no longer in it. What God done in that moment was separate me from everyone, especially those who I'm close with that could potentially keep me in the gang activity. But when he does bring us back together, it's at a time when we are both out of it. Now, as you're aware, I was very gang affiliated. I never worked. God allowed me to get my HGV license. And with that, you have to have experience to get the jobs. God presented me a job on my first application, secured me with a wife, family, purchased my home. You imagine when I was on the streets selling all the drugs, I could never buy anything of any worth. God allowed me to buy my first home, supply for my family, walk with him in a place of peace that passes all understanding. When I say that, the peace that you gain from being in Christ, you can't explain it in a way that people can understand. I'm not welcomed at one stage in my life in Handsworth, Hockley, Winston Green, Ladywood. No. But I've been in those areas purely on church events, seen people, and that vibe is no longer there. Christ saved me from war and death, where we was under a spirit of murder, where we just wanted to kill for no valid reason, to a place now where I can share Christ, I can share the gospel. I'm willing to be around places spreading the good news of Jesus Christ. And that's what leads me here today. Thank you again to Colleen, because I'm here to share with you that you too can experience the salvation that Jesus presents. All you have to do is accept him as Lord and watch him transform your life. It probably sounds cliche, but if your heart is pure and genuine, because Jesus doesn't just go by what we say. He understands our heart already. And it's because of our heart that he can act upon. So if you're here during this moment where you was able to witness this, I ask you just to signal to Colleen that you want to make this step with Christ. Put away with all the complications that comes with being on the streets and being that guy, because that only leads to prison, death. And if you somehow escape those two, your future, because it took me a while to balance this thing called credit. You know, where you're able to go out and your name can present yourself good to those who require finances. Christ is the one that restores, but your salvation is key. Don't just be here hearing these words to just be out of your pad and then you go back to your pad and do all kind of madness. Speak to those leaders there. Speak to those in the chapel where you can have a Bible that can speak to you about making a commitment towards walking with Christ. And I hope and pray that some way or another we'll be able to see each other and you can say, I heard your testimony while I was in prison. And then we can walk this journey together. Peace and blessings to you all. Amen.